Hi. So I'm getting a bit of a cold, so I apologize for my voice, but see how we go. As developers, a key challenge that we have is to manage complexity in our projects, because projects can get very complex very quickly, even in small projects with small teams. With rapidly changing code bases and a growing development team, being able to communicate how and why our code evolves over time is crucial. As developers, we spend a lot of time considering names of variables, methods, and functions. We consider our code architecture and the design that we use. We write automated tests, which act as documentation to our code, and all those help communicate our intent in our programs. There is another tool to help us communicate what our intent is, and this is a version control system, and in this talk I'm going to use Git. Git has a commit history, which is useful for documenting intent. Git history is a living, ever-changing, searchable record that tells a story of how and why our code is the way it is. The ability to document code effectively using Git is just as important as being able to deliver features, write clean code, or readable tests. Git history is kept forever. Unless you remove commits, the Git commit lasts forever and stay around. Commits are always tied to the code change that they talk about. So when the code changes, the new commit message will be written. This is great because the documentation never gets stale. It lasts exactly as long as the code it talks about. And they also don't clutter up the code, yet they are just a step away if we ever need them. Every commit is available to everyone on the team that ever made the code base available to anyone that clones the repo. And lastly, all our commit histories is searchable. So commit messages can be easily searched in many ways. We can search all the contents of all the commit messages. We can search all the code changes. We can search by files touched, by author, by date, by a specific line. So the easiest way to search a commit history is by using grep. And there's other ways as well. I would like to introduce 3 good basic practices for using Git before actually going into discussing merging and rebasing. The first and most importantly, I want to talk about making small thematic commits. Make commits about a single change to your code base. To illustrate that, here's an example of a commit that does way too much. There are multiple issues addressed in this one commit. There is no way to revert just one of those changes separately. This is from a project I worked on a few years ago. Can we imagine an alternative history when this commit has been split into separate commits? I can see quite a few different ones I could split this one into. Some people ask, how big or small should a commit be? It is worth thinking about a minimum viable commit, which means the smallest useful change that you can make to your code base. Another useful rule of thumb is to avoid needing and in your commit message. If you did A and B, maybe they should be separate commits, separate changes. Second principle, write good commit messages. Although your code should be self-documented, it doesn't tell the story of why the code is the way it is and how it became to be this way. Since we are already breaking the changes into small, purposeful commits, it means that we should have a good idea of the value of each commit. Some people write commit messages that are a record of what actually happened. I did this, I did that. Others tell the story of how the project evolved. We really want to be in the second camp. So commit history can give us clarity of intent, clarity of thought, and ability to reason about the code. I find that it helps to look at commits from the perspective of another developer, or even me 6 months later. What questions might they be asking when looking at our code changes? What might not be immediately obvious? So let's look at some examples of bad commit messages. There are so many. There's one example, and amazing. Obviously. Oops. Yeah, so Try to always write commit messages as if you're explaining the changes to a colleague sitting next to you who has no idea what's going on. Provide as much context as possible and as much useful details as you can. Try and answering the following question is a really good start. For example, why is this change necessary? How does it address the issue? What side effects does this change have? Were other solutions considered? And consider including a link to discussion, a reference, a bug tracking system. So a suggested template to use for commit messages is this one, which have a short one-line title. So when viewing our commits in a list format, it's a lot friendlier to look at them and read them. A good commit subject is written in the active present tense and as a command. The body is an explanation of why the change is being made. So if people want to know how they can change this in the future, what they need to know, and what the intentions of the change was. The description can be informal. It's like you're talking to your team. It doesn't need to be in present tense command. In fact, it's better usually written informally. Describe the why are we making this change? And then when you make this commit, we know more about why we are making this than ever later in the project. So it's useful to outline some of the context and alternative approaches considered. And lastly, we have a link to a project management system. To make this more concrete, here's an example of a commit message from a project that I'm currently working on. You can see that we have a one-line title, we have a link to a Trello card, and we can see explanation of what was done and why. If you have a writer's block that you don't know what to use in your commit message, here's some suggestions. So I looked at the current project that I'm working on, and the top 10 verbs that I used are the following ones, and there's a few ones on the bottom. Some suggestions for you to use. Principle number 3, work in small feature branches and keep them once again as single-purpose branches. The core idea behind the feature branch workflow is that all feature development should take place in a dedicated branch instead of the master branch. This encapsulation makes it easier for multiple developers to work on a particular feature without disturbing the main code base. It also means that the master branch will never contain broken code, which is a huge advantage for continuous integration environments. Working in feature branches makes it possible to leverage pull requests, which is a way to initiate discussions around the code. They give other developers an opportunity to sign off on a feature before it gets merged into master. Or if we get stuck in the middle of a feature, we can start a pull request and ask feedback and suggestions from our colleagues. The point is that pull requests make it incredibly easy for the team to comment on each other's code. A suggested workflow, we start with creating a new branch. And you can see that in my branch name, I have my initials, which is, while working at Thoughtbot, this is the general guidelines, which this is my branch. Nobody else will work on this branch, and you know who owns this branch. Then we update the branch, we commit a new changes. We push the changes in the branch to origin. So you can push it with the first command. I usually prefer the handy command, the second one, because it pushes the current branch to the same name on the remote. A lot less to type. I open a PR for feedback, and then implement changes based on the feedback. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to rebase master on my branch interactively and push updates from the updated branch back up to origin. As you can see, when I do Git, because I rebase, the whole history has been rewritten. So when I push, I need to force push it up, which is fine on my branch. It's not OK when you do it on master. And then I check out back to master, and I merge using fast forward only. Now, the default for merge is no fast forward, and we'll talk about this a bit later. And lastly, when I finish, I clean up all the branches. I don't leave any branches behind. So git push origin : and the branch name will delete it from origin, and then git branch -d will delete it locally from my environment. Now, Git merge and Git rebase offer the same service. They incorporate commits from one Git branch into another. The key distinctions lies in how this result is being achieved. To git merge, we basically just do git merge and my feature name. And as I said, by default, the merge command is set off to no fast forward. No fast forward means that when we branch, we get a new merge commit, the one with the asterisk there, which ties together the histories of both branches, giving us a branch structure that looks like this. If master is very active, this is from another project I worked on. If master is very active, merging can pollute the log history quite a bit. Like, you can't really see nothing that was done. Oh yeah, fixed fail specs somewhere there. Often merging changes into master can result in our history becoming tangled and difficult to read. This becomes even more of an issue when you have several feature branches being developed in parallel. For collaborative workflow, where team members read the logs for insight and context, readability is important, whereas merge commits can clutter up our logs and make it much more difficult to understand the flow of the project history. When rebase, on the other hand, gives us the opportunity, when we interactive rebase, it gives us the opportunity to alter commits as they are moved into the new branch. This is even more powerful than automated rebase, since it offers complete control over the branch commit history. Typically, this is used to clean up messy history before merging a feature branch into master. To rebase interactively, we use git rebase -i or -- interactive, and then grab the changes for master. Along the way, we might need to make some changes, and then we will need to do git rebase -- continue, or if we want to stop the rebase, we can just -- abort. And let's try some examples, shall we? I want to do this, and I want this, and I want to get rid of all those things in the background. Let's remove this for now. Is everybody seen this okay? Let's do this a bit. Is that a good size, or should I do it bigger? Bigger? Cool. Okay. So let's start with making a new directory and changing to that. And let's touch just a new file, and let's echo some stuff into our file, and let's check that it's there. Cool. Awesome. Let's do, and let's do, yep. Let's do git add our file. Let's do add git status, and it's ready to be committed. And let's do git commit. And we are ready to get started. Let's start with one branch. So let's do git checkout a new branch, and let's call it fix Toronto. So we created a new branch, and we switched to the new branch immediately. I didn't think about that, sorry. I don't know what needs to be fixed in Toronto. Okay. I just also want to have a look at a list of, yep, I'm on the correct branch. Awesome. So let's do, and let's go here and replace that. And if we do git diff, we see that we capitalize Toronto. Awesome. Let's do git add and git commit. Cool. Let's, what else do I want to do? Let's open index again, and this time I want to decide that this should really be a heading. So done. Again, let's do it git status, one changed, git diff. That's changed. Cool. Let's do git add whatever I have and git commit. I apologize for document messages. This is for now. Awesome. Now, let's go back to master and get at another branch. So git, exactly the same thing, git branch and do m, and let's do, where am I? Fix heading for something else. So we're in a different branch, and this time I want to come over here and do it camel case, because this is how it's, I think, on the website. I don't remember, but let's say yes. And again, git diff, and we do git add this, and git commit for full stack should be camel case. And the last thing that I want to do is make this a heading again. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. So this is the same change in both branches. And I'll do git add and git commit should really start with a heading. Cool. Are we okay so far? Everyone with me? Awesome. So again, if we git checkout master and we go at git branch locals, we have 2 branches, and I can do git. If I do git diff master with fix Toronto, we see the difference, and we can do the same with slightly different. Awesome. Now, my default for I changed my default of merge to be fast forward only. So if you look at my config -- list and we'll grab for merge, you will see that my setting says, everybody sees on the bottom, is that okay? You can see that it's FF fast forward only. So when I do, if I go back here and I want to merge one of them, let's do git. I will need to manually define no fast forward to go back to the git default. And let's grab the em fix heading. It opens up and it gives me an option to add a merge commit message, which I don't want to change for now because this is what most people do. And I'll click that, and that's done. So now, if I look at my git log, I have my first one, then the camel case, then be a heading, and then a merge commit message, which is just a noise. I have, you can do a nicer way of looking at your git log by using a pretty options of one line, which looks a bit nicer. But I have an alias that's called lull, and it gives me like an also graphical display of how the branch is, and you see that where the branch is, which I think the more you have that, the more it becomes indented in, and it's just ugly and unreadable. If you want to see my alias for lull, it's pretty much graph, decorate, one line, abbreviate the comments. Simple. Okay, now we did one merge. Let's try the other one as rebase. So let's do git checkout em fix Toronto, and in this one we're going to rebase master on it. So we're going to do git, doesn't matter, git rebase interactive. We're going to grab all the changes for master to rebase on it. Now you're going to get the screen that looks like that. And the screen shows me the commit messages that we have that currently are going to rebase all the changes on top. And then we also have all the different things that we can do. And this has changed lately. There's a lot more options than... pick or P is to actually use the commit. R is use commit but edit the commit message if you want to change that, which I use sometimes. You can use the commit but stop for amending the actual code. Squash is we're going to talk about later, which is use the commit but meld into the previous commit, so to take two commits and make them one. Fixup does the same, but it also removes the commit message. So I don't care what the message was. I've never used X. D for drop, I usually just remove the commit. So if I went up and I didn't want to capitalize Toronto, I will just remove that, and that commit is pretty much gone from the history. Or you can use D, either one. And I don't think I've used any of the other options. Cool. So we already, there's nothing to do here, so we're gonna rebase. And you said that we can't apply because we have conflict. So let's look at diff, and I'm just gonna check my notes. And you can see that I have the Toronto and they have the heading. So really what I want to do for this change is I'm going to open index, and I'm going to grab that, but I want to make the same change in this case. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to make that this way. Actually, yeah. Cool. So do you see that I'm still in rebasing and I'm still on a no branch? So if I do git status, they're both modified, but I don't have those. If I do, there is no like notifications for merge conflicts. So I can also do git diff, and I can see the change. I can do git add, and then I can do git rebase continue. Awesome. It opens up if I want to change the commit message, and I don't. So I'm going to stop there. And then it stops again, because this time, if I look at the difference, it has the S is there, but the S has been capitalized. But in my case, it's not there anymore. So let's open up again the index to deal with the conflict. And in this case, I want to keep the top version, that is the head, and I can get rid of the bottom. Save that. I can do git add all, git rebase, continue, and we are done. Now, if we have a look at our commit history again, we will see that the one where the heading should have been really starts with a heading has been removed from our previous branch because it has no changes to the current code base, to the current branch. So even though the first branch looks ugly, for the rest of the code presentations, we're going to just have a linear history, that it's much more readable. Any questions about that so far? No. Cool. Shall we continue with the presentation? Let's do... no. Yep. And let's go back. Cool. So we talked a bit about this and about all the different things that you can do. And as you can see on the bottom, it even tells us that the lines can be reordered, so they are executed from top to bottom. If you remove a line, that commit will be lost. However, if you remove everything, the rebase will be aborted. Note that empty commits are commented out. So GIT Rebase Interactives allows you to rewrite commit messages, remove commits that snag from a different branch, combine commits by squashing them into one, reorder commits, and doing a lot more. It gives us a history that looks like really bad screen grab. It gives you a history that looks like that and reads a lot nicer than when you have merge commit messages. It allows us to revise the development history before sharing. Once commits are on master, they do not want to change them. Once commits are on master, we do not want to change them from underneath people. But in development branches, it can be much more useful if they tell a story about what we intended to do instead of a blow-by-blow account of all the mistakes that we've done along the way. If our development branch tells a good story about what we did, then it is easier for everyone to understand what was done and whether it solves the problem. But revising the history, we can get a linear history that tells a better story of how the code was evolved. Now let's talk about auto squash and fix-ups. It is fairly common for a feature branch to be squashed down to somewhere between 1 to 3 commits, if you keep your branch small and your feature small, before it's merged. Following this practice, there are a few Git features that can make our interactive rebase quicker and easier. Basically using fix-up commits and getting interactive rebase to auto-squash them automatically for us. So let's try again. Let's come back here. And I can remove that. And I can do that. And where were we? Let's try another branch. What we didn't do with the previous one. So this is currently still on our branch, right? Let's git checkout master. And in this case, we're going to do git merge fast forward only, which is a default for me, em fix Toronto. And it does a fast forward. And again, if we look at our history, we get exactly the same history in our branch. Awesome, forgot to do it before. So let's check out another branch. Let's add copy to our website. And let's open index, and we want to, let's add some navigation. So I think we have on the website schedule, and we have speakers, and we have logistics. And then we also want to add some text. Cool. We added some stuff. Those two changes should not be in the same commit, as we said. So let's do git add, and this time let's do, can't remember what the P stands for. But in this case, it gives me all the different hunks of code that we have in our code, and I can break them, split them up. So in this case, I want to split. It doesn't let me split, so I'm gonna, it's too small. So let's do differently. Try, it didn't work. Let's grab that for now and just do that. So let's do navigation. Yep. So we do git add navigation. Yeah. Cool. Now let's open the index again, and this time and the git diff again, and we have that. Awesome. And we're gonna do git cool. But now I realize that I forgot one of the links. So let's come here and go here, and let's add a link to the homepage. But in this case, because I know it should, if you look at a log history, this really, where are we? This really belongs in add navigation, right? Instead of saying I forgot home. But let's do this. Let's do it this way. Let's do where are we? Git diff. Cool. Let's git add this file, and let's do git commit -m forgot home link. Now, I also notice that we have an extra line in the end of the file, and I don't like that. So I want to remove that, or Rubricop is going to complain. So I'm going to open the index.md, and I'm going to go down to the bottom, and I'm going to delete that line. So now when I do git diff, I have one line less, and this is just a hassle. Like, I really don't care about this in my Git history. So I'm going to git add this file, and in this case, if I go, I want to add this to, oh, I have a typo. Cool, we can change that. I want to add this to this commit, and I know that I want to. So I'm going to grab this SHA, I'm going to do git commit fix up, and I'm going to give it this SHA. Cool. So now if I'm going to look at my history, I have add navigation, add body text, forgot, home link, and then a fix up. So we have two ways of seeing how we can rebase with multiple commits. Let's do again, rebase from master. And in this case, you see that even though we did the fix the body text last, it attached that to the correct commit to be fixed. I forgot to say something, I'll say it later. I'll say it later. Then the forgot home link should really be in the add navigation, right? So I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to put this here. I'm going to change that to be squashed. Yeah, just so we have a couple of ways. And this one, really, I want to change that to be reword the commit message, because I had a typo in there. So let's see what we get. So this is the first one, and it wants to combine both of them together, and it gives me both commit messages. So I'm going to grab the first one, and I don't care about that I forgot the home one. That's done. Then the second one, I had a typo, so it let me rewrite the commit message, right? So let's change that to Y. And then the last one, it automatically fixed and squashed for me. So now when I look at my commit history, I only have 2 commits. And it's ready to be merged into master. Now, the thing that I forgot to say is when I did the git rebase automatically, if I wanted the fix-ups to be picked up, I really need to say auto squash. But it's set automatically to true for me, so I didn't actually have to type that. So if you look at, what did I want to do here? If I want to do tail, this is a different way of seeing my git config. You can see that I have the merge for fast forward only, and I have my auto squash to true, so I don't need to manually type that. Cool. And then the last thing to do is, since this is ready to be merged, it's check out master again. And then I want to do git merge with my done. So now when I look at my commit history, I have everything linear. Simple? Think simple. Cool. Displays. Come here. Yep. And I want to grab that and go back here. So as we've seen, to use fixup, to take advantage of fixup, we need to tell Git which commit the new changes should be merged with, and which is why we add the specific SHA. And then when we rebase, we need the auto squash flag to actually make it work magically for us. The interactive auto squash picks up on commits with a message that begin with fixup or squash. And then we can set our rebase to auto squash by default by using this command, like what I have. Things to remember when rebasing is rebase often to grab recent updates for master. Use rebase when you want to keep a linear commit history. Never use rebase on a public shared branch, i.e. never ever rebase to master, unless you have sensitive information that you need, and you need to let the whole team to actually grab the new updates. If we spend as much time ensuring our commits are well factored as we do factoring our code and test, it will save us and the team time and pain in the future. So let's repeat some of the principles. Make small feature-specific commits. Ensure that we make one change at a time. This makes it simpler to work on and also makes it easier to revert a specific change rather than having multiple commits that need to be reverted. Write good commit messages. Remember to explain why we made a change in the first place. This is the perfect opportunity to reflect on what we did and to provide context. Work in small thematic feature branches. Rebase frequently to incorporate upstream changes for master. Review and revise history before sharing. Keep your history linear to clarify and convey linear thought and the ability to understand what was going on with our code at any point in time. And then, lastly, auto-squash your commits. Thank you very much. Any questions? Anyone?
Hi. So my question is about the kind of the first few principles you suggested in one of the examples, because you use your initials as part of your branch name.
Yeah.
So have you considered the scenario like the multiple developer may work on the same feature branch?
Yes. So we usually do, if Trevor and I work on the same branch together, it will be both our initials at the beginning. So it'll be EMTO, EM dash or hyphen TO dash, whatever the feature is. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.